I just wanted to say how honored that the National Center for State Courts is to have the opportunity today to sign a memorandum of understanding with the Singapore Judicial, the SJC. As we move forward, I hope that we can effectively use these types of activities to work with other countries, perhaps in this way. As you know, we are utilizing at the National Center for State Courts the Zoom application to manage our webinars now in many ways in the United States in recording and documenting approaches to best practices in COVID. And I also wanted to say that I see the Singapore Judicial College as a great leader in the area of helping to address the approaches that judges need to learn more effectively how to do their jobs, and staff and the community. In fact, when I think of Singapore, I woke up this morning and I was thinking, I've been working with Singapore for 25 years in many ways. I think it started in my capacity as an advisor to the Judicial Conference of the United States when we established the International Relations Committee of the United States Judicial Conference. And I wrote a letter to Chief Justice Rehnquist when the Berlin Wall fell. And I wrote it on behalf of one of our esteemed chief judges in the United States. And I asked for the creation of an International Relations Committee for the Judicial Conference. And since that time, in working with the International Relations Committee, and when I became president of the International Association for Court Administration, I started working with Singapore. I started working everywhere I was in the world. Singapore was in the world, and it was amazing. There's any country that I crossed paths with, it was Singapore. Even most recently in Kazakhstan, as I attended their meeting in Kazakhstan, Singapore was there. Singapore was on the agenda. Whether it be the United Nations Organization for Drugs and Crime and the establishment of their new commitment to anti-corruption, Singapore was there. Also, very importantly, as you know, the National Center, and Mary McQueen is the Secretary General to the International Organization for Judicial Training. Judge Kwan knows this. Singapore is always at the table. That is always part of the organizing and the presentation process during our ceremonies. But one thing I've learned about Singapore, while Singapore represents the profession of teaching among the best institutions in the world, I think Singapore learns as well as any country that I've associated with. I think the way you study, practice, process, teaching methods, and how to effectively manage those methods is as good or better than any institution I've worked with in the world. So it is in that sense that I wanted to say that it adds a level of pride to this association that I represent the National Center for State Courts in working with one of the most esteemed institutions in the world for providing an important service to the judges of Singapore, the United States, and the world. It is in that light that I want to say that in signing the Memorandum of Understanding with the esteemed Dean Fu and all of his colleagues at the Singapore Judicial College. And as I read the Memorandum of Understanding, which is fresh in my mind, it represents a collaborative opportunity that is also truly unique. I think I understand that we can learn from each other during this process. And as we work together, I think primarily in Asia, but I could also see Africa, as we design our approaches to curriculum development and how we work together in other countries. And I know that only recently we finished an action plan for the General Council of Mongolia, wherein we are including the SJC as our partner in managing some of the priorities for Mongolia going forward. In fact, Mongolia had already outlined basically their vision for working with Singapore and the National Center for State Courts. So, and we were the only two organizations that I recall that were on their action plan, that were included in their action plan. I also know that because of the experiences of the last 6 months, Memorandum of Understanding cites modern approaches as foundational elements of our agreement. I think the term modern is fluid in nature, and I think we cannot just stop learning. We must apply the experiences of the next 6 months. And honestly speaking, in my last 2 minutes, I have been working with the National Center for 10 years, but as you may know, Dean, I was also the Chief of Court Management for the International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia. So I've worked for the UN. I've managed multinational elements of organizations. And to me, foundationally, one of our greatest challenges in the world now is building public trust and confidence and reinforcing the need for an independent judiciary that cannot be threatened by executive power. While I have never been a politician in my 45-year career, I am an independent. I've always followed the political necessities of having worked in the judiciary for being politically independent. By training judges, we reinforce the importance of the judiciary as a separate branch of government. And that's why I think I do what I do. It's one of the reasons I'm signing this document today, is I believe that at all levels of the judiciaries of the world, that we need to work more effectively together to keep our institutions strong. So it isn't a competition. To me, it's always been an alliance, and it's an alliance for better justice. That's my thoughts in 10 minutes, Your Honor. And I turn it over to you, Your Honor. Thank you so much, Dean.
Thank you very much, Vice President Jeffrey Epperson. So I've prepared some opening remarks, and I hope you will bear with me as I outline them. Yes, that's right. Vice President of NCSC International, Mr. Jeffrey Epperson, NCSC Program Manager, Ms. Zlata Lunakova, Dean SJC, and my fellow colleagues. Good morning and good evening to my colleagues. I think today marks a really momentous occasion. Despite the challenges of the current situation, both the NCSC and the SJC have shown its trademark resilience in soldiering on and continuing to forge partnerships even in these very difficult times. NCSC is, of course, no stranger to Singapore and the Singapore judiciary. Vice President Epperson, you have already stated that you have worked with us for more than 25 years. In fact, my first encounter with NCSC was more than 10 years ago as a magistrate at the then subordinate courts, now called the state courts. At that time, NCSC and the subordinate courts were involved in pioneering work on developing an international framework for court excellence. And since then, as VP Epperson has stated, the NCSC has continued to collaborate and partner Singapore and the Singapore judiciary in many other aspects. When the SJC was first established and the office of its executive director held the appointment of regional deputy president for Asia and the Pacific of the International Organization for Judicial Training, we have had numerous occasions to witness NCSC's exceptional thought leadership at the IOJT conferences. And on these occasions, the most recent of which, VP Epperson, if you recall, was in Cape Town, my dean and yourself discussed how NCSC and SJC could actually work together as partner judicial institutions in Asia and beyond. The signing of this evening's MoU formalizes these discussions. And like you, we are very privileged and very humbled to be NCSC's partner in Asia. The SJC is really the brainchild of our Chief Justice, and I quote him on this occasion. Over the past several decades, the work of the Singapore judiciary in a number of areas, including in organizational governance, the use of technology, and effective and expeditious case management has been the subject of study, and the college will enable us to share some of the lessons we have learned in these vital areas, close quote. With this MoU, what we hope to do is to build on that vision of lending our experience to jurisdictions in Asia and beyond in our efforts to contribute to their capacity building and enhancing the rule of law in the region in the process of doing so. We will, I believe, no doubt be guided by NCSC, which is an established consultant in this field. And we at SJC have the technical know-how and insight, as you have pointed out, and the strategic partnerships with Asian jurisdictions to drive the modern approaches and reform initiatives, as well as provide the technical assistance services envisioned by the MoU. As rightly pointed out by VP Epperson, these concepts are fluid, and what we are really committed to do is to meet real-world needs as the current situation unfolds, and also delivering real-world solutions in the jurisdictions that we will work with. In short, what we are doing is judicial education and training translating to something that is tangible as opposed to academic, something which jurisdictions can grasp and practically use as soon as the very next day, and indeed for the many days to come. Finally, I will be totally remiss if I did not acknowledge those who have contributed tirelessly for this occasion to materialize. As they say, the last shall be first. And so here goes the honors roll. First and foremost, VP Epperson and Dean, for your extraordinary vision that has brought the signing of the MoU into fruition. Second, to the working team, Lucian, Rebecca, Zlata. Lucian for all the liaison work. Rebecca, who was up to the wee hours of this morning to finalize event details with Zlata. And of course, Zlata, who was indefatigable in arranging to clear our draft MoUs with in-house counsel at breakneck speed. Third, we of course express gratitude to our Chief Justice Sundaraj Menon, Justice Andrew Pang, who chairs our Board of Governors, the Attorney General's Chambers, the Ministry of Law, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, for supporting this endeavor. VP Epperson and Zlata, I believe that this MoU is a shining beacon of hope in uncertain times when judiciaries around the world are coping with pandemic and post-pandemic responses that will be appropriate to their jurisdiction's needs. life must go on, and the corollary to that is justice must still be served. This MoU beckons to the world and says, we are here for you. And for NCSC and SJC, I know and I'm confident that the journey we are embarking on together will be, like what you said, VP Epperson, totally unique and worthwhile, with the aspirations of our MoU fully achieved. And when we can finally say at the end of the day, hand on heart, to each of the jurisdictions we will soon be working with, that our work is done here. So thank you very much.
Zlata, I'd like to turn it over to you and to go through the unique signature process that we're about to introduce here.
So I will share my screen as agreed to affix to the pre-signed copy Jeff's signature. We're affixing Mr. Apperson's Vice President of the National Center of State Courts signature to the MoU dated August 18th, 2020. And I will save this copy and I shall send that over to the team in Singapore.
So what I've done is I have actually prefixed my signature on the MoU as well. And it is shown here. And likewise, this will be sent on to NCSC and to you, Zlata. So thank you very much.
Wonderful.
Thank you, Judge. Thank you so much. It's such an honor to have my signature on the same page as yours.
Likewise, Jeff, the honor is all mine.